Yes, indeed, Steeler Nation. We are back for another great episode on the one and only The Sick Podcast, Steeler Crazy. As always, I am Jay York Football. Alongside of me, Mic'd Up Sports One. And yeah, hey, we clinched a playoff berth. We did take the loss in Philadelphia, and we'll get to that. And why don't you tell the good people how they can make themselves some money with our great partners over at DraftKings?
Yeah, the NFL season is rolling along, and the contenders are separating from the pack. The one thing that has not changed this season, DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. It is the number one place to bet touchdowns. Unfortunately, the Steelers didn't score enough of them last weekend against the Eagles. Maybe they'll change that against the Ravens. We don't care how the Steelers, or any other team you bet on gets them. We just want to bet touchdowns on DraftKings. The best place to bet them. Reason for new customers to do a touchdown dance of their own. You bet $5 to get $150 in bonus bets. If your bet wins, that is an absolutely incredible deal. You can take Jordan's advice. He's been solid all season. He had a Pat Freiermuth anytime touchdown last week. That was a great bet. I'd like that to continue as long as George Pickens is out. Hopefully he's back, but we'll see. But make sure you go to DraftKings. The number one place to bet touchdowns. Most importantly, use our code SICKSPORTS. Right there, you see it on your screen, SICK Sports. New customers, you get $150 in bonus bets if your bet wins when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings. The crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, 21 and over. Age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bet must win to receive reward. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/ftball.
Shane, take it to the end zone.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. Steelers Crazy.
Harris Smith shields. Blackout. Omar takes it home. Super Bowl 43. Pittsburgh might be bound for that thanks to number 43.
The sickest Pittsburgh Steelers podcast. Sports entertainment like no other. It's gonna be sick.
What up?
Man, it's like weird because I think I predicted I think you picked them to win or lose.
You picked them to lose. Yeah. So we're
backwards. And I never picked the Steelers to lose, but I just had a bad feeling about this game. And man, was I right? And I think we'll kind of just jump right into it. The biggest thing that jumped off the boards for me is the absence of George Pickens yet again. I personally think that Omar Khan didn't do enough, this offseason. If I had to critique a little bit, I don't think Mike Williams is the answer, as you did allude to that on previous podcasts. But man, it just shows you, what a freak athlete that George Pickens is when he's on that field, because it's just a totally different dynamic when he's out there.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to crap on Mike Williams too much, and I was harsh on Omar Khan after the trade. Mike Williams seems like a great guy. Yeah, he made a really big catch to win the game against the Commanders, but I think he has 4 catches now in 3 or 4 games, and every time I post something negative about Williams, Steelers X seems to come at me and say the reason he's not doing well is because they're not throwing him the ball. Well, I think they're not throwing him the ball because he can't separate, and he's just not very good anymore at this age. Yeah, he's a fine wide receiver 4, but when he needs to step up in the absence of George Pickens, it's simply not enough. Russell Wilson is an excellent quarterback. He's making Calvin Austin look really good out there. At times, he's made guys like Scotty Miller look good. So if Mike Williams was anything like the old Mike Williams, he would be performing right now. Trust me, because it's not like he's
like Van Jefferson 2.0.
Don't even get me started on Van Jefferson. Once again, another great guy. You hate to preface everything by saying that because most of these guys are good guys.
They're all great guys. We're talking specifically on a performance-based level, and I'm sure that they would agree.
I think they have maybe the worst wide receiver room in the NFL without George Pickens. I don't think that's an exaggeration. I really don't. And it's saying a lot. You're right about Omar Khan. They had some chances in this game. You mentioned George Pickens being your biggest takeaway. That's fair. I think my biggest takeaway will be the struggles of the secondary to stop A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith and Jalen Hurts. The Eagles look like the best passing offense in football history, and they didn't have over 200-yard passing for 3 consecutive weeks. So I think, unfortunately, we're seeing the strength of the Steelers, the front seven, can only do so much because when the back end plays good passing teams, they're getting exposed, which scares me, facing a guy like Josh Allen that you might have to beat in the playoffs to get to where you want to go.
Yeah, I mean, I have to agree somewhat with that. But yeah, I mean, it's just, you're not going to win every single game. I don't want to be one of those teams who are 13-3. And I just feel like I'd rather kind of I don't want to say per se be the underdog, but when you're rolling with that much steam, everyone's looking, to come and to knock you off. I kind of rather go in quietly into the playoffs and, let the performance speak on the field as opposed to on paper, as they like to say. But yeah,
the sky is not falling. It's not falling.
Mike Tomlin said that. It's a loss. There's not. Everyone wants to dissect everything, and it's for example, when we had the Snowfest game in Cleveland, obviously it's the Cleveland Browns, and then we come back and beat them. I don't expect. I mean, the Kansas City Chiefs lose games. Buffalo Bills have a loss. This is the thing about it. It's the NFL. You're not going to win. Even the best of the best, the elite teams aren't going to win. So I'm not one of those people that's going to write it off. Oh, like you said, we always, go back to the X people, the Mad Yinzers, Dave and Carrick's flipping out because Mike Tomlin's not going to have another, non-losing season, but are the Steelers going to win a playoff game? I mean, honestly, the optimism is an all-time high at this point. We said that in the beginning of the year, just with the quarterback change and everyone that they brought in the offseason. But now we're kind of seeing that come to life on the field. And if this team can get healthy and get hot at the right time, I will say this. This is, to me, at least making it. And again, call me crazy, but let Russ cook. You guys were hating on me since day one. This is an AFC championship team that can play in the game, whether it be, whoever it is. And they're a dangerous team, so watch out. But they need to get healthy. They need to be clicking on all cylinders. And it's a long season. This is the gauntlet, as we said before, and this is when everyone starts to kind of push away. Are you going to be that wild card team? Or are you going to have a first round bye? And we know how Steeler Nation is. Having that home field advantage means everything.
Yeah, I agree with your point. And I was talking to somebody today, and I mentioned the flaws that really worry me about the pass defense, like I just mentioned to you. I think Joey Porter Jr. and James Pierre, unfortunately, haven't gotten better. And that's Terrell Austin's fault, and a little bit of Mike Tomlin, that they have, as young guys, you want to see them ascend, but they've kind of flatlined, and some could say Porter's even been worse. My point is, anyway, though, I'm kind of flipping this on its head, in that in the AFC, you're not going to face a ton of teams in the playoffs that can just attack you vertically down the field consistently. The Steelers already beat the Broncos, the Chargers, right? The Ravens. They've done a really good job holding these teams, down, at least from these explosive type passing games we saw against the Eagles. You look at the Texans, right? They crushed the Steelers last year, but they don't look as good. I said earlier today, the Steelers can beat anybody in the AFC except Buffalo, I think, in Buffalo, because that's the explosive guy in Josh Allen. That's the offense with now Amari Cooper, Keon Coleman's back. You have Khalil Shakir out there making plays that I think would beat the Steelers. So, but who knows, right? You get into the playoffs, you get into a couple pass interference calls, some balls bounce your way, but they could beat anybody. They could beat, and I wouldn't trust them against the Lions, Eagles, some of those NFC teams. I would not trust them against because the way you can throw it downfield.
Yeah, I agree somewhat, but I think that if George Pickens was healthy, you have Larry Ogunjobi and our guy Deshaun Elliott out on that field. I think that the outcome could be a little bit, at least a closer game, maybe coming down to the final possession. But I ultimately think that if they were healthy, they could have won that Eagles game. I think that they're being very careful with George Pickens because injury, because they don't want him to re-aggravate that. And I totally get that. I think that he definitely, hopefully, will play this weekend. But at the end of the day, like for the longevity of it, I think that was the right decision. Obviously, it amounted in a loss. I'm not saying that just him singularly, it's a team sport, but we all know having him on the field is just going to be, I don't even know like a word to honestly describe George Pickens at this point. Like I always go towards freak, but he's like the most athletic athlete, if that even makes sense, that I've ever seen. And when I mean that, just he makes like acrobatic catches look routine. And not a lot of people can do that. There's guys that make one-handed catch. Odell Beckham did it throughout his career, but George Pickens literally does it on a weekly basis in practice, up at training camp, like it, and then just goes back, to it's insane. So I think that, I don't like to use this analogy, but, it's definitely given me AB vibes. I just hope that it doesn't, end like the AB era did. And hopefully it ends in a Super Bowl and some confetti coming down in the near future. But hey, let's preview this AFC North matchup. Obviously, we have a great reporter coming on from the Ravens, straight from practice. End of the week. So we'll get her take on what's going on in that Ravens locker room. But we all know AFC North football, it's the best of the best. You can throw the records out of the window. But obviously the Ravens, Lamar Jackson has been steamrolling. So what do you think? What's your biggest take going into this game?
Yeah, I'm not overly optimistic. And I get it. The Steelers have always played well against Lamar Jackson. They certainly are his kryptonite. The Steelers and Mike Tomlin are, I think, 6-1 now against John Harbaugh in the last 7 games. So Tomlin has dominated that side of it as well. With that being said, there's just a part of me that feels like the Ravens are due. And I think, a significant factor in that is the Steelers' injuries. I don't think it's all because they're the better team and they're gonna, prove that type deal. I want to see if Pickens plays. I want to see if Watt is 100%. I want to see if Elliott, their best defender on the back end.
Man, I honestly forgot that TJ Watt got dinged up too. I guess I try not to think 100%. About it. That's why I've heard God. Anytime I see like something pop up, I'm like closing my eyes.
He's a game wrecker. He's the best player on the team, and he's a team MVP in my mind. Sorry, Chris Boswell. I know a lot of people have him winning that award right now. But if he's not 100%, who knows? I think that's why this line started at Ravens -7, which is a big number, especially for a team you beat earlier in the season that has had your number over and over. But I think Baltimore being at home, Lamar Jackson is on fire. I just feel like they're due. Now, with that said, will I be surprised if the Steelers go in and win? Absolutely not. It's going to be a close game. AFC North football, like you said, a lot on the line. Potentially an AFC North division. Although I just want to mention for anybody out there who's listening, the Steelers control their own destiny, even if they lose to the Ravens, which I wasn't necessarily aware of until I ran some of this data and asked some folks as well. So if the Steelers lose to Baltimore and beat Kansas City and Cincinnati, no matter what happens, they still win the AFC North. But JY, if you beat the Ravens, you clinch and you don't have to worry about beating the Chiefs, right? Like it's easy to say like, oh yeah, you just beat the Chiefs and you still win the division. But
be a nice Christmas gift to say the least.
Yeah. Summed up. I'm not overly optimistic, and a lot of that has to do with the injuries for sure.
Yeah. And that's what, ultimately it comes down to. Obviously this is a contact sport and there's going to be injuries. It's just who can, recover the fastest and put out the healthiest, team out there. And I think that this is when it matters. And that's why you see George Pickens sitting out these couple games and everyone's like, he could play. I'm like, I'm sure that he might be able to play. I said, but do you want to have him in the playoffs? Do you want, if they need to make, win these games to, whatever scenario they need to get, like I'd rather, lose to the Eagles and win this game. And like you said, we don't have to really worry about anything else.
It's easy to forget that they're in the playoffs, literally, because we haven't, it's always taken us up to like week 18, 17.
I know, this is new.
They're in the playoffs.
We experienced it before, but
they're in the playoffs. They have a chance. They could rest everybody be in the playoffs. Playoffs, Jim Moore. They could literally still be in the play. They could literally rest everybody these next 4 games. Yeah. Get healthy and still 3 games. It's still the Super Bowl. This is where we're at. I'm not going to do that, but
yeah. And like I said, we'll preview the Ravens matchup more with our awesome reporter that's going to be coming on later in the week. But this season as a whole, I'll just kind of sum it up, and we can give your closing notes as well. It's been really fun to watch, and I feel like I have to reiterate this and it's funny because I think Steeler Nation would all agree. Like, when is the last time? Obviously you have the Browns game, the Eagles game, but when you could actually like enjoy like seeing touchdowns, like good defensive performance, and like handily win some of these games. I think I can't even actually recall like vividly like when that was. And I always go back to like, the Big Ben, his last few years, but even those were kind of, on the out and out. So when would you say, like, realistically, when's the last time you sat and watched the Steeler game rather than this season when you were kind of like, I could just actually enjoy this? Like, this is football.
Yeah, 4.5 years ago, because
that's crazy to think about.
The last 2 were Pickett and Trubisky. The one
Yeah.
before that was Ben's final season, which was awesome. I enjoyed it because I love Big Ben.
Yeah,
but you knew that Super Bowl, they weren't going to win. They limped into the playoffs.
Yeah, that Browns game was enough when he went out there. His last that was enough for me. I might have shed a tear. I think I did shed a tear that night, and I have no problem saying that because.
And I say 4.5 because the year that they started 11-0 was the last time I really enjoyed it. But then they completely crumbled. So it's like I enjoyed half of that season. Half of that season showed me that they could win.
Mason Rudolph era at the end was kind of like intriguing, but it was like I still was like wanting to put my head through a wall.
There's always been fun games, but it's been 4 years since we've been like, all right, they have a chance. Like and that's a nice feeling again.
How do you honestly think right now that two things, how the Denver Broncos feel? And I know that they're having kind of a good year, but watching Russ, put up the number that he's doing and kind of having this resurgence. And then what do you think? Because Caleb Williams and the Chicago Bears right now, it is a dumpster fire. I just think that whole organization as a whole, it's just since Mike Ditka and William the Fridge Perry, they haven't been right. But I will Walter Payton as well. Yeah, the Fridge. But how do you think that they feel, and Justin Fields is, going to the playoffs, whether he's the backup quarterback or not, he did contribute to some wins. He's going to the playoffs for the first time in his career with his first season with a new team. So how do you think those two franchises are looking at the Pittsburgh Steelers and their quarterbacks right now?
Yeah, I think when it comes to a team like the Chicago Bears, you learn it's more about an organization sometimes than the actual player. Because Justin Fields looked pretty darn good for them last year.
Ryan Poles seems to be a good football-minded person too.
And they keep screwing it up somehow, right? They added multiple weapons. They added Caleb Williams, obviously, and they're not close to producing offensively the way they did with Justin Fields. So you look around the NFL, it's happened in multiple occasions. Sam Darnold, crappy organization, the Jets, goes to the Vikings now after a few stops and looks great. So maybe a bad organization to good organization. Baker Mayfield, right? Cleveland Browns, crappy organization. Look what he's doing now in Tampa. So those are my thoughts about
change the scenery does a lot.
I'm going to be really bummed when likely Justin Fields is playing somewhere else next year, because I think the Steelers are going to keep Russ for a few more years. I'd love for them to find a way to like Jordan Love Justin and say, hey, listen, in a couple of years we're handing you the keys. But I really think Justin can play, and I like Justin a lot. But and I think the Broncos, really quickly before I throw it back to you and we wrap it up, I think it's like one of those rare win-wins that you see in the NFL for both teams. It does happen. Like when the Lions and Rams swapped Matt Stafford for Jared Goff, the Rams literally won a Super Bowl with Stafford. They got what they wanted, and now the Lions are the best team in the league, and Goff has actually been better than Stafford's the last couple of seasons. So that worked. I think both teams are happy, and I think the Broncos are still happy because they're playing well and with a rookie. And the Steelers, they're really happy because they finally have good quarterback play for the first time in 3 years.
And that's like my whole thing. I completely agree with the Russ thing. I'm not so high on Justin Fields. I think he's a great athlete. I think that he's a mediocre quarterback, and that's just my general
it's fair.
opinion.
Fair.
I think that he's dynamic. I love watching him play, and trust me, when he's in black and gold, when he's behind, I want him to do his thing. But I've never been like really too high on him. But having him as a backup quarterback and, emergency QB, whatever you want to call it, or you could run plays with them, I'm all for it. And they seem to have good chemistry, him and Russ. Russ just seems like, everyone can say and paint a picture. We've had former teammates, people who, work closely with him on this podcast, and they have nothing, good stuff to say about him. He's at Children's Hospital every Tuesday, for Christ's sake. I mean, this guy is everything that you look for in a quarterback and as a person on and off the field. So I think Pittsburgh's really happy to have him. It's just funny because isn't it funny how the tables turn? 1 minute they're chanting Justin Fields, and the next minute they're, hey, Russ can win us a Super Bowl. And I stand by it. And I really do think you see quarterbacks with a good offensive line. You see quarterbacks playing long. I mean, I hate using this analogy, but Tom Brady, for example, you see, obviously he's not producing, but Aaron Rodgers is up there in age. And these guys, Joe Flacco, and Russ just seems to be rejuvenated. And I would honestly think about giving him a 2-3 year contract after this year.
It's going to happen. That's why I think it's going to be gone.
And if you get out of those 2 or 3 years, 1 Super Bowl, heck yeah, it was worth it.
Easily. I mean, come on. People would take that 100 out of 100 times. And
Exactly.
I think I'm not worried about the next couple of years, obviously right now, and nobody should be. But I think in the next 3 to 4 years with Russell Wilson, the Steelers will win a Super Bowl. I do.
Easily. Let them cook, baby. We'll end on that. Shane, I think this is a great segue. Mike, if you have anything to add. But yeah, so sign Russell Wilson, 2-3 year deal, win a Super Bowl, maybe 2. Sounds like a plan. Hey, it's been great hanging out with everyone. It's great, just the boys chopping it up. Appreciate you guys interacting with us all over social media. Make sure you tell your friends, your grandmother, your aunt, your uncle in Sarasota. Make sure you subscribe wherever they're at. And we're going to keep cranking out great content, shows, and opinions. Whether you like us or not, we're not going anywhere. Kidding. We'll be back with a great guest on Thursday, live from the Ravens locker room. We're bringing it. See you guys soon. J York Football, Mic'd Up Sports 1. Shane.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast Steelers Crazy on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.